a special engagement out of our tradition or our convention of the once in a quarter engagement, because we thought there was a need for us to intervene in the ongoing matter concerning fuel price increase. The new price range from 850 naira a litre at Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited owned filling stations to 1,200 naira a litre at stations owned by independent marketers. The public reaction to a new petrol price regime has been the trend. This public reaction to new petrol price regime has been the trend since 1988. As always, the government is the culprit of the new price regime. These cuts nearly quadrupled the oil prices from $2.90 a barrel before the embargo to $11.65 in January 1974. The ensuing rise in oil price sent shockwaves worldwide, and the cost of petroleum products, especially the famous petrol brand, skyrocketed. To lessen the impact of the petrol price increase on Nigerians, the government, under the leadership of then General Yakubu Gowon, announced the policy of subsidizing petrol price. The subsidy is occasioned by fixing the product price, usually below the market price, and paying the difference between market and the fixed price. Since that 1973 intervention, we have been stuck with the vagaries of subsidies. Of course, many countries across the world initiated different subsidy mechanisms to the high petroleum products price increase. At that time, the Nigerian government's subsidy intervention was rationalized by the enormous earnings from the crude oil price increase of more than 400%, which left the country more or less flush with petrol dollar. General Olusegun Obasanjo, then military head of state, also formalized the petroleum subsidy regime into law when he numbered it among products for which the government would be responsible for fixing their prices and for which they should not be sold above the fixed prices. Again, this was supposed to be a short-term measure to cushion the rising international oil price. It was intended as a temporary fiscal measure, as a temporary fiscal response to an oil price hike instigated by the actions of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. At that time, I was in 1977. It is, however, instructive to note that under the two principal protagonists of subsidy, the price of petrol recorded increments in response to emerging economic realities. Under Gowon, for example, the price increased by 40% from 6 kobo a litre to 9 kobo a litre, while under Obasanjo skyrocketed by 70% from 9 kobo a litre to 15.3 kobo a litre. Our argument is that subsidies were introduced into the Nigerian economic ecosystem as a consequence of the availability of fiscal resources. They were then a mechanism for fairer redistribution of the country's wealth among the populace in time of huge revenue earnings. When there is a downturn, the tendency is to halt their implementation because of the distortion inherent in their continued application. But as it were, the subsidy and we, as a people, have become economic Siamese twins. Every move by the government to stop its application since 1988 has been received with uproar and outrage, despite the material changes in the economic dynamics that informed the policy in the first place. This latest furor over fuel price increase is typical of other times. The Nigerian Labour Congress has taken its traditional front row and as always pointing fingers at the federal government for being responsible for the latest price increase. However, as a body of analysts, we submit that all this trouble mongering should stop. Despite the common knowledge that fuel subsidies were excluded from the second half of the 2023 budget, about 73% of Nigerians interviewed in an opinion poll said they were dissatisfied with the removal. We find it surprising, however, that the same people who want full adherence to the provisions of the PIA and clamor for it are the same individuals who want the president to subvert the law. To avoid doubt, it will amount to a breach of the law for the president, government, or even any of its agencies to attempt to determine the price of locally produced fuel, even when the Port Harcourt refinery begins to roll out fuel, whenever the first phase of the ongoing rehabilitation is concluded. This is the larger extension of Nigeria's growing potential to become the petroleum refining hub of the West African region. If the NLC must protest, it should be concerned with driving this vision, the vision of making Nigeria the dominant refining hub in Africa, driven by the private sector. The labor movement should also be focused on compelling the federal government to speedily roll out the adoption of compressed natural gas, CNG, an energy source that has been confirmed to be cleaner, vehicle-friendly, and way cheaper than petrol. Difficult as it appears at this moment, we can assert that only market-determined petrol pricing can unlock the true but latent potentials, capacity, and capabilities of the Nigerian nation and its people.
So when I want to find out from your own analysis, what is the cause of the sudden rise in the cost of, for instance, goods like bag of rice that used to sell something like 30,000 during the past administration, that is now selling for close to 90,000. If we have decided to remove subsidy on the cost of diesel that was being used to transport goods, as at the last administration, now what do you think was the cost of this sudden rise that every food item, skyrocketing? I want you to tell us the cost. Then secondly, since the subsidy was removed on the eve of the last administration departure, and then we were full swing on market forces with the sale of petroleum products till this time, I want you also to tell us what did you find out was the savings from that removal of subsidy between the last year and now, and what that money have been deployed for. In what areas have they been deployed to?
NSC went for a negotiation, and in that negotiation, the president told them, "You agree for 70,000 naira, I will not increase price. But if you don't want me to increase price, let's go for 1,500 or 2,000 naira by liter." NFE went back and they conjured and decided, okay, it is better we assess 70,000 and the president is not increasing anymore. Under a gentleman agreement, believing that the president will not receive them, they went for 70,000. Just less than 2 months, you are saying you are increasing it. Is that not a betrayal?
Starting with what was responsible for the cost of rice, cost of increase in the price of rice, despite the fact that subsidy had been removed on diesel. Of course, we all are students of basic economy. We also understand the fact that no single factor is responsible for price movements. That when the price of a product moves, it is a combination of different factors. And in case of rice, for instance, it is about our major concern, security. It is about the fact that, as a matter of fact, we have devalued, or we are experiencing or recording depreciation in our national currency. And to that extent, it had made our products cheaper, especially our agricultural products cheaper. Do not forget that at a point in time, we have a high traffic of our neighbors in the West African region come into Nigeria to purchase our food items. And now, because of the incidental that our naira had depreciated, it had made our products more attractive, price attractive, you know. So it is established actually that because of this depreciation of our national currency, more people, more West African neighbors are going into our farm gates and are buying more of our products. It is an opportunity. Your products are not in high demand and you complain. So it is an opportunity for the government, especially at the state level, because the state government are the ones responsible for using, are the custodian of our land, of our agricultural land especially. So what we are saying essentially is that we need to have an agricultural revolution to provide the needs, you know, of people, not just Nigeria, but our neighbors. And we will be able to commercially and profitably, you know, engage our agriculture. So here we have, in this situation, we have found ourselves in a dilemma, positive and negative. Negative to the extent that we have more demand, higher demand for our food items because of the cheap, you know, price that accompanied the policy of harmonization of foreign exchange windows. But again, it has also thrown up at the same time opportunity to produce more, sell more, earn more, and of course, this is an opportunity to be able to say that the non-oil sector, you know, will be adding more to our foreign reserve, perhaps more than the crude oil. It is a common knowledge that starting immediately from August last year, there had been a quantum increase in the allocation of all tiers of government in Nigeria. The fact allocation, you know, exponentially increased by more than 50%. At a point in time, those of us that follow economic activities and policies in Nigeria, especially in the wake of the recession, 2016, 2017, 2018, when our federal allocation was at a point in time less than 300 billion. What we spend in Nigeria, what is the basis of our accounting, is naira. And that is why even the Oyibo men, the Oyibo economists, tells you, evaluate your GDP along the line of the dollar and along the line of purchasing power parity. Because as a matter of fact, what your 1,000 naira will buy, or what your 10,000 naira can buy in Nigeria, the $150 cannot buy in America. And today, Nigeria is number 27 globally on the purchasing power parity ranking because of the nature of our economy. Now the challenge, of course, is that since we discovered oil, we were supposed to use oil as a driver of our growth. And subsidy itself was introduced to empower Nigerians at that point in time when our population was less than 80 million. And we had kept to this basic policy that traduce whatever may be the developmental potentials we had. Because again, when you have resources and you are driving it on consumption, you have challenges going forward. So we had more or less retained ourselves in the same circle, you know, of underdevelopment since that 1973 that this subsidy was introduced. So we have been moving around in circle. We have not in any way recorded any form of substantial development. Because again, you are spending more than 30% of your resources on consumption, and not just consumption that develops. We have just analyzed how those that are supposed to benefit from subsidies are actually the ones, you know, subsidizing those who are strong, you know, enough to pay for their fuel needs. That's not supposed to be the target of subsidy. The target of subsidy are the people at the bottom of the pyramid. They are the people that are supposed to be developmentally pushed up. If we are not attending to those people, for God's sake, let us channel whatever we are saving, you know, into education. What I know, and I think the government had also adopted that position. Government has no business in business. The refinery business is a highly specialized corporate business. Selling at subsidized rate is what had actually killed that industry. Because the industry, the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, is not about PMS alone. In the 70s through to the early 80s, we had a vibrant petrochemical industry. By the time all our refineries got under the water, that sector that drives textile, that drives the plastic manufacturing sector, electronic sector, manufacturing sector, you know, and disappeared. And they disappeared with jobs. They disappeared with prosperity. So can we sit back and review what exactly had been our benefit? We have to take this matter by the horn and fight it. Let the refineries be operated as independent, private-driven refineries. Let them produce, let them earn, and let the earnings, you know, go into the pocket of the federal government that will be shared by the FAC. Because at that level, we have more money. We are focused on Abuja alone. Our governors are earning more, sometimes 3 times more than they were earning. Our local government chairmen are earning more. Can we start monitoring them? Can we start asking them what they are using their money for? So it's not just about the federal government. The base of your question has to do with the president making commitments about the 70,000 minimum wage, and that price of fuel will not be increased. The federal government has said they never entered into that kind of agreement. And I think nobody, no consensuous thinking, you know, logical mind would make that kind of agreements, you know, to tie your hand, to tie your own hand in future maneuvers, you know, by such agreement. I think it's not appropriate. But the truth of the matter still is, can you have a higher percentage of the fruits you are getting from the garden sold, so that while you are still eating, you can also have money or fund to acquire other forms of life conveniences? Thank you for listening.
Thank you.